Welcome to the 615 Locker Room Podcast. I'm your host, Wormy, with Uncle Matt here, where we talk all thing Nashville sports and a little bit outside of that. Um, we want to start off by jumping into Nashville SC versus Toronto. It's a 1-0, sorry, win against Toronto. Matt, what was kind of your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, it's kind of almost like it's a weird one. It's a lot of people were very frustrated by the match, and I was too. But I mean, I think it's kind of a testament to what Nashville SC has become this season is that we're kind of getting the opposite treatment we used to give other
Yeah.
teams. We're kind of getting that low block, heavy defensive performance. I mean, Toronto would have been happy to get out of that game with a nil-nil result. They were content to not do too much, but just not give up too much. So we did pretty well to capitalize on the biggest chance we had. Had a few other kind of near misses, but that's the kind of big thing that keeps happening for us as a team this season is games where teams are trying to limit us, games where we're not having things go our way. We're still finding a way to get results, and I think to me that's the one of the testaments, one of the things that is a sign of a good team is you get results when things aren't really always going your way. The referee was, I wouldn't say he was a bad referee. Like it was just a weird, bizarre, kind of all over the place thing. It's one, and as a referee myself, I know sometimes matches can kind of get away from you where you're trying to like let the lads play, so to speak, and
Hmm.
then things get a little crazy, so you try to reel it in, and you kind of let it go, and that kind of felt like what was kind of going on with him, where he was trying to let the teams play as much as he could, but then there was times where he tried to tighten up, but it was a little too late, and then he tried to loosen back up. So inconsistent refereeing, just stifling defense from Toronto, which for as bad as they are, as bad as they've been in the last few years, if you kind of look like their recent results, they're not like getting killed. That
Yeah.
was kind of their standard result so far this season is either tying or losing by one goal. So got the points at home. That was kind of the tail end of a really, I mean, tail end, but here we go again. Tail end of a kind of a crazy stretch of games we've had recently. That was kind of like the light game we had recently. So
Yeah.
to kind of still keep it going and get a point, 3 points there was pretty good for us. But yeah, it was not the most fun Nashville SC match in
Hmm.
this season, but I think we got to have a long term memory and remember some of the bad days in the past and kind of say, hey, we got 3 points, we won the game. Let's be happy with that.
Yeah. And I'm the same way. Just despite uh, really going into that game, I'm just kind of remembering all the circumstances that we're under. Long stretch of games. We want to take it careful, which we mentioned last week about overplaying people, and to still come out with a 1-0 win. I'm expecting at some point we were going to lose, which we did to Miami, but I figured we'd lose more at some point. It's just that's just how sports works. So to still come out with a 1-0 win is good in my book. The I This is a little side note, but we've talked about my degeneracy in sports betting a little bit on the pod before. So I was watching the Philly game at the same time as this game, and I just feel like refs across the board this past weekend were just not there. I think Philly had two, maybe I know they had at least one red card and a couple yellows, and it was insane watching that game. And I know that people were complaining about the Nashville Toronto one. I do ask, in my eyes, like, there's referee integrity, and you're always supposed to go whenever you're refing a match, playing, you know, calling things fair. Do you think that as your team becomes more successful, you gain a bigger target on your back when it comes to refereeing?
Yeah, I don't know. It's always been a weird thing. Just like it's not just only with soccer, but with like sports across the board. Like there's I going back to way back in the day when I was a kid. Like there used to be like the Jordan rules that like Jordan got
Mm-hmm.
away with everything in basketball back in the day, and you know certain hitters in baseball always were rumored to have like better strike zones than other hitters. It's almost like the or it's almost the opposite of like kind of what you ask sometimes, where it's like the
Mm-hmm.
better players, like the Messis of the world, to keep it in the MLS, kind of jargon, like get a little more protection, get a little extra help, just because like are the refs more intimidated to not call things for those players or to call things on those players.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like, I've never reffed anywhere close to that level. Like half the time I'm refereeing like, high school teams, youth players, college teams. So I don't know the kids. Like it's not like I haven't built up the repertoire. They don't have any kind of fame level to me. So I don't have that kind of built-in thing. But I can imagine it's like human nature. It's got to be
Mm-hmm.
hard, especially like players of that extreme level to kind of like have that extra thing in the back of your head because it'd be great. I know like more and more sports are going to VAR, robot
Yeah.
umps, stuff like that to try to like kind of take it out of the referee's hands. But at the same time, they can't be robots on the field. Like there's going to be emotion involved in them. There's going to be just
Yeah.
instant reactions. Like there's times like this is kind of a different scenario, but like you can kind of feel as a referee sometimes when players are starting to get a little heated, and like I can almost at times see fouls coming before they're going to come because I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
Seven is not happy with what just happened to him. He's if he gets close to this dude, he's about to take him out. Sometimes they're too slow to get there and it doesn't happen. Sometimes they get there and they foul him and you're kind of seeing it there. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
the mental side of the game that you hear about with athletes and stuff is it's true for referees too. They've got a lot of things going on in their brain. It's not as robotic as just like see foul, call foul, see
Yeah.
infraction, call infraction. They're also, considering like, game flow. Like we have conversations at halftime, even at the games that I do at my level, where we're like, hey, foul count right now. We've got, 8 fouls for red, 3 fouls for white. Is that it? Do we need to like try to like, not, say we're gonna like cheat or change the game or whatever, but like, just kind of be aware of where you're at in the game. Like, hey, that
Mm-hmm.
team's gonna start to think something if like foul count keeps being lopsided. Things like that come into play with referees of all levels, I'm sure. So it's a hard thing to say, but you'd like referees to all just be robots who just are
Yeah.
completely impartial, just call things robot SC it is which is funny because like when you do the trainings we do as referees, they do kind of teach you that way. They're like, this is a foul. This is always a foul. Call this a foul number out. And they'll go, but sometimes, if you got to manage the game, you've got to think about it this way. You can maybe let this one go. It's like, wait a minute. You just said this has to be a foul. Now you're telling me maybe you manage the game. So it's a weird balance that referees, try to strike. I'm a lot more lenient on referees now than I probably was, 10 years ago before I started reffing myself. Like,
Yeah.
I was coaching like high school soccer 10 years ago when I was the a-hole coach who was just like not going to stop yelling at a ref till he gave me a yellow card. But now I'm kind of, I chilled out and kind of have a better like understanding of what they're going through. And I think it's given me a better like overall perspective of the game too, where I'm kind of like, I don't always agree with what I'm seeing from referees, but at the same time, I can kind of at least somewhat maybe get into their headspace and kind of think what they're thinking. So like the referee in the game against Toronto, I was definitely like, he just was too inconsistent for my liking. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the match doesn't let you be as consistent as you like to be. So I, not being like in his head, not knowing exactly what he was seeing, what he was thinking through. I will say there was one thing I really, really didn't like that he did, and this is maybe just like a pure like mechanical thing, like from a
Mm-hmm.
referee perspective. Like he did this thing, like, maybe we saw it better like in the stadium than like the on TV where maybe the camera went away from it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
There was times where like it looked like whether it was a Toronto player or a Nashville SC player, there was something that looked like it could have been called as a foul, and he would kind of linger, and he would do this weird thing like would like almost stare at the player who was down, like get up, get up, get up, but not really signal anything, but like almost like he wanted that player to acknowledge him and then be like, yeah, I'm not calling a foul. And then he'd move on. It was a really weird, like little tick that I noticed a few times where I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't like this. I don't know. I move pretty quickly when I'm refereeing. Like I'm, the players I'm refing aren't moving at the speed of MLS players, obviously, but like I
Yeah.
don't feel myself like lingering in a moment and kind of like staring at a player, being like, waiting for you to acknowledge me first. Like, it's one of the things like I had to struggle with when I started refing was like doing those kind of more demonstrative things. You kind of got to do that sometimes, like to let the crowd know what you're doing, to especially let your like ARs know too. Something because sometimes they might see something and think you want to give a foul, but you got to be like, no, 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 we're not doing anything here. So he had this. It was just a weird tick because he wasn't really signaling anything. He wasn't really like doing any kind of motions. He just kind of would linger, and like the play would be going on behind him, and I'm like, you got to go on with the play, brother. If you're not going to call anything, why are you staring at the play like here? Like you
Yeah.
even have the benefit of VAR, which like most referees do not have at like different levels. Like just you're not going to call anything, just follow the play. Don't stare at the players on the ground like you're trying to let them know, hey, I want you to know I'm not calling anything. It was a weird tick. That was the one thing
Yeah,
that of anything I was like I was annoyed he was a little inconsistent, but that like thing was really like weirdly got under my skin for whatever reason. And that's like probably just like a weird referee tick where I'm like, why is he doing that? Yeah, but yeah. Outside of that, and I hear like a lot of people like who watch a lot of leagues say MLS is a little bit more like that than other leagues around the world. But I don't know if that's true. I think everybody hates referees, no matter what sport, no matter what league. It's just I've never seen a league where
yeah,
everybody's like, these referees are awesome. We've got the best referees in the world. So I
yeah,
mean, like, I think referees are kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's probably like other than being like a coach of like a bad team, it's probably one of the hardest jobs you can have in sports. So yeah.
yeah. I mean, refs are always going to be the bad guys unless they call something for your team, which it's just insane way of thinking. So I try to be easy on the refs too, but uh, that's just something that I thought about. Um, Going into probably what people paid more attention to is the MLS All Star Game. We had I didn't watch the All Star Game, but I was watching the skill games the night before. Uh, but during the All Star Game, Serge scored, our boy, and then we saw Mukhtar and Nahar play, um, which I don't think they were out at the same time. I think we saw like two or three full rotations. Uh, did you watch the
Mhm.
game at all?
No, I didn't actually get to because we had power outage at our house last night from like
Mm,
right as soon as the game kicked off, which like it's one of those weird deals MLS does where like the game was listed as being like an 8 o'clock kickoff, and I don't think the game started till like 8:45 or something like that because there was like all this pregame stuff and all this other stuff going on. And by the time the game actually started, the power had gone out at our house, so I didn't like see the highlights and everything until this morning. I got more caught up in the whole like the Messi situation where like he was,
mm,
you know, opted not to play, little ignorant thing, and it's kind of just like a weird kind of whatever look at like an all star games across the board, which like there was a lot of discourse online about like, oh, is this a disrespect to the league? Is this like and whatever? And there's no doubt he's played with between Concacaf Champions Cup, the Club World Cup, the regular MLS schedule. Miami's played a crap ton of games this season, like
mm-hmm.
already. Um, and to just throw like this random All Star game in the middle of all that is just another
Yeah,
thing. So like I totally don't fault Messi, for not playing in it at all. Like I would not fault any player for not playing at All Star games. I mean, look at like the Pro Bowl. Like at this point, like it's like nobody goes to the Pro Bowl from like the NFL
mm-hmm.
anymore. By that time, and maybe that's like a product of like the season's over in the NFL. But All Star games across the board kind of are
They're
a bit
jokes.
of a wash. Baseball's still okay. NBA, like they all go, but they don't. It's kind of gotten weird where they're like, it's going to be we're going to have 4 teams and they're going to be captains. It's all kind of gotten weird with All Star games, and I think one of the reasons that MLS has more participation is that the players don't make as much as other professional leagues, so
Yeah,
probably is behooving to them to like go to the game to like get whatever bonus they get for that. So, which would make sense why that's not a thing a player like Messi necessarily cares about. I had a tweet that's for my level of tweets has gone pretty big in engagement and everything. I've gotten like tons of likes, tons of comments, tons of stuff where I just said pretty simply, I have no problem with Messi skipping the All Star game. I will have a problem if MLS bends the rules. Not suspend him from the next match because the MLS
yeah,
rule is if a player is selected to the All Star game and does not play outside of like an injury concern, they are suspended for the following match after the All Star game, which Miami's playing FC Cincinnati, top of the table clash in the Eastern Conference this weekend. And Don Garber, the commissioner, was non-committal, saying, "Well, we got to discuss this with Miami, what the reasons were, what the logic was behind it." And it's just kind of all seems like it's setting up for another kind of weird, wonky. Miami seems to get a little bit of a favoritism thing, which it's I don't. I'm not as big of a Messi hater. Like, there's tons of National SC fans who just like crap all over Messi or like he's ruined the league. It's crap that he's not here. I'm like, he's put a lot of eyeballs on the league. I mean, we're just being dumb if we say like he's made the league worse by being here or whatever. But like at the same time, like when it comes to like bending the actual rules of competition to help him and help them, that's where I get a little
Yeah.
tissy about it. Like they've signed this new player from Atletico Madrid, this high level, really talented Argentinian player, Rodrigo De Paul. He's coming in as the new window opens, and a lot of question marks about how they could possibly do that because all their designated player spots are full, and they've somehow also
Mhm.
got Luis Suarez, and they've got all these other players. So like, how can they afford another like dude who could potentially still be playing at a high level in Europe? And the Miami kind of pushback is like, oh, well, they're just willing to spend. They're willing to find ways within the system and play. Why you question it? And the thing that like I saw Clay Tranium, he's like a top like dude who's been covering Nashville C since like they were like a fan owned club that had a speck in the drop of a potential MLS future. He pointed out the other day on Twitter. He's like, when people are critical of Miami, when people are questioning Miami for potentially bending the rules and stuff like that, and Miami fans push back and say, why would you question us? Why would you question that? Miami, long before the Messi thing even became a thing, one of their first or second years in the league got fined and hit with sanctions for breaking roster rules, for breaking salary rules. So it's not like this club does not have a history of trying to circumvent things and doing things. So when you keep seeing stuff like this happen, I think that's why fans get frustrated. I'm not frustrated
Yeah.
with Messi being in the league. I do think I don't know if the Apple TV deal happens if he's not here. I don't know, time will tell the long term ramifications if people stick around when he's gone. But
Yeah.
I think it's not a negative for him being in the league, but just where I get into a little bit of annoyance is when like the rules of competition seem to maybe be tweaked or adjusted for him. Because I guarantee you, like we play, and I'm sure we'll get into it here in a minute. We play San Diego, top team in the West, Friday. We're recording Thursday. We're playing Friday. The
Mhm.
game was Wednesday. Do you think BJ Callahan wanted Hani Mukhtar, Sam Surridge, and Andy Nahar to play in the All Star game and then literally have one day off before that match? Think if he was not worried about them being suspended for that match, he wouldn't have said, "Hey, we're not sending our players to this match." And do you think if like somebody like who is a star at the MLS level but not at the global level, like Hani Mukhtar went, "I'm not playing in this match, but I'm going to play Friday night." Do you think the MLS would not have used their rules in that situation? That's where I get frustrated. It's like
Yeah.
different strokes for different folks. I guarantee if it was any other player than Messi, you know, and if Miami wants to say, oh, it was an injury thing, then he shouldn't play Saturday. If he wasn't healthy enough to play Wednesday, he shouldn't have played. He shouldn't be play Saturday one way or the other. And I think that's kind of one way or the other. I don't. I On the other side of it, I don't think MLS should have that rule. Like because I
Yeah.
think All Star games are outdated, especially like how jammed in it is. Like there was like a thing where Don Garber was almost defending Messi, but not like committing to saying they weren't going to spend him. Where he was like, "Oh, just well, look how many games Miami's played this season. You can understand why this would be a little bit of a burden on a player like that." And I was kind of like, "Is this the I think you should leave meme where the dude in the hot dog suit looking around going, we're trying to find the guy who did this." I'm like, who made him play all these games? You're the commissioner of the league.
Yeah.
You're the one who's made him play all these games. Like, and you're going, oh, he's just had to play so many games. And like the other thing a lot of people have pointed out is I think that I don't know if it's all teams, but I know after our game Friday, and I think you had mentioned this, but I think we are a week ahead. I think Nashville SC has like a 2 week break after the game Friday, and I think a lot of teams in MLS. So like everybody was kind of like, wait, why didn't they just put the MLS All Star game the next week or something like that? Because
Mhm.
that's the big thing in baseball and the NBA is like it's a break. It's not just like a random game shoved in between like 10 other games. The
Yeah.
players actually get somewhat of a break when the All Star game comes in. Like the players who don't make the All Star games in those other leagues get to like go to Cancun or like have a quick like vacation or something like that. Like our team, like the players that didn't make the already in San Diego, they were training in San Diego today, so
Yeah.
like they didn't even get a. I mean, I guess going to San Diego is like not the worst thing in the world, but I mean they didn't get like a to go away with their families and kind of recharge for like 2 or 3 days. They like straight kept having to work, so it's kind of a
Yeah.
weird. If you're going to do an All Star game, it's supposed to be a reward for the players, but it feels like this year in particular, it was like making things worse. Like when I saw we were like I didn't even realize it was this week,
Mhm.
and I knew we played Friday, and then they were like, "Oh, the All Star game is Wednesday." It's like, wait, the All Star game is Wednesday, and we play Friday, and not only we play Friday, but we play away game way on the West Coast. I was like, this is whatever. We'll see, but
Yeah.
yeah, the All Star game. I think MLS is going to have to whatever they do with the Messi situation, they're going to have to take a long, hard look at what they're going to do with that. Whether they find a better spot for it on the calendar.
Yeah.
I honestly like, the NBA, even like the baseball with the home run derby. I think the skills competitions are the things that are still the entertaining part of it. I don't know how much entertainment people get out of the actual games at this point in time. So I don't know, but I
Yeah.
think it's just one of those things where it's such a tradition in American sports. Like leagues have a hard time getting rid of it. And I'm sure they sell a ton of tickets to it too, so it's hard for like the leagues to be like, let's get rid of this thing that we make a lot of money off of. So, but I don't know. This year seemed like the first year where like the All Star game just seemed like a kind of a hoop show for MLS at least, whereas like the other leagues have all kind of been going that way for a while.
Yeah. I mean, since I would say maybe like the turn of 20, like late 2010s, maybe, I feel like, especially in the NBA, the All-Star game has just been really taken as a joke by the athletes. And I think that's like the main thing. I mean, for example, the WNBA All Star Weekend thing just happened, and Caitlin Clark was one of the team captains, and the whole time she was just like, "Yeah, we're not gonna." She's just not taking it serious, which is fair. There should be some sort of incentive that gets the athletes to buy into it, because whenever there isn't an athlete buy-in, they try less, and then it's less entertaining. Um, and I think I'm a, in my head, I think having it at the end of the season or after the season, even in the postseason, makes the most sense because you don't worry about injuries. Viewership might go up because you have a break from watching games. So you're like, oh, this is happening. I can get a little bit of the breath, little air of MLS to watch while we're waiting for next season, something like that. I think Messi and Jordi Alba, they should probably get their one match suspension because anyone else would have if they would have skipped out unless there's you know unless there is a good reason, which I don't know if there will be, and I don't know if the league was notified of it. Uh, my biggest holdup with this All Star Weekend is with the MLS is why do we have another league there? Like I and I may sound bigoted for this, but like I'm watching the MLS to watch the MLS. I want to. We have two conferences set up. We have the perfect system where we could do East versus West, or even like I mean NBA, which I don't watch this, so I wouldn't care for it, but it's an option. Is like rookies versus others or something like that. That would make most sense to me. I mean, it's important to play outside of our competition. And I mean, for example, we are playing Aston Villa August 2nd. We're in CONCACAF Champions Cup, or we not this season, I don't think, but we were, and stuff like that. I mean, we're playing other leagues, and I think MLS All Star Weekend should be MLS All Stars. Uh, what do you think about it?
Yeah, well, I'm a little bit older than you, so this is kind of you're kind of indirectly hitting on one of the things that I think across sports have made the All Star games kind of diminished is that baseball is kind of like the glowing example of this, where for the longest time, the National League and American League did not play each other except the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
So outside of the championship series, the World Series, the only time you could potentially see American League players versus National League players was in the All Star game or the World Series. So that made it kind of special. And then baseball brought in interleague play, and it was originally it was only like 1 or 2 weekends a season. There'd be some crossover, like, and it'd only be like 1 or 2 teams playing each other. And that used to be that kind of was across the board for all sports. There was less like Eastern Conference, Western Conference, AFC, NFC. But as like the leagues have expanded and grown, and they've tried to up the schedules and everything, like there's a lot more where just everybody's kind of playing everybody now. And also, I think like there used to be more of a thing where like the games weren't as readily available to view with streaming and everything that we can watch every single MLS game. We can watch, if you spend the money, you can watch every single NFL game, every single MLB game. So the All Star games also used to be an opportunity where, like, if you didn't, you got to see all the stars that weren't from your local team or that weren't always on, whatever the national broadcast were. So I think as the uniqueness of Eastern Conference, Western Conference, AFC, Western Conference, NFC, those teams playing each other kind of went away. That's where teams started looking to, like, because NBA, they've done stuff like this too, where it's been like, let's do USA versus international players, let's do draft the teams, where it's like Team LeBron versus Team Steph. They're trying to find ways to spice it up because like Eastern Conference, Western Conference isn't as special anymore because those players, those teams play each other all the time a lot more. So it's not as much of a
Mm-hmm.
unique matchup as it was, 10, 15 years ago when I was a kid watching this stuff. Because like that used to be, baseball is the shining example of it because it used to be like such a unique thing that if you were a fan of the Yankees or you were a fan of the Braves, the only way you saw those star players playing each other was pretty much in the World Series or the All Star game. And it's like the specialness of you can watch every game you want, you can see every player you ever want, and these teams play each other like multiple times a season. It's kind of diminished, and MLS was kind of like one of the first ones to kind of shift away from like Eastern Conference, Western Conference because they've been doing stuff like MLS All Stars versus Arsenal, MLS All Stars versus whatever European teams coming over here for their preseason tour and stuff like that. So it's kind of been already diminished, and I think one of the reasons they went to MLS All Stars versus Liga MX is because for a long time we were kind of getting smashed by those European teams. Like, so it wasn't the best like look for the league to do like, hey, let's do the MLS All Stars versus Arsenal, and the MLS All Stars lose like 5-2, and it's like especially because if you watch like European teams when they come over here, they kind of play their starters for like the first like 20, 30 minutes and then kind of start
Mm-hmm.
rotating. So it's like, do we really want like the best players in our league getting demolished by Arsenal's third string? Maybe this isn't the best look for us. I think like trying to
Yeah.
pair up with League MX, and they've obviously we've got the Leagues Cup that's been going on for a while. We've got a little bit of history going with them with the Concacaf Champions League, so just trying to like have a little more crossover there. To me, makes sense, but I just think the whole All Star concept is outdated because
Yeah.
like I said, I think MLS maybe players have been a little bit more invested in it than in other leagues because they don't get paid as much as other professional leagues in America. So like the bonus money they probably get to be in the All Star game probably is something significant to them at least to
Yeah.
keep them coming back. So, but um, I don't know. I think at this point, All Star games across the board, like baseball is probably like the last one that really gets away with it, just because like
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's too much concern about anybody getting hurt in a baseball game, especially like
Yeah.
an All Star game where everybody's just kind of goofing off. Like the pitchers only throw like one inning, the batters maybe have one at bat. So, but I can understand like players not taking football. I mean, I think the NFL Pro Bowl is just like a flag football game now. Like they don't even like do
Yeah.
anything like
Yeah.
close to real football anymore. So I know it's like kind of like a tradition in sports in America, and it's hard to let go of, but it's probably something that needs to be rethought, refigured. And like with the NBA, I've thought for a long time if they just kind of got rid of the game
Mm-hmm.
and really highlighted the skills competition, that would almost like be a highlight. Because like the big thing, like for me, even back as a casual NBA fan, used to be the dunk contest, and like the stars used to do the dunk contest, and they don't really do it anymore. And I'm wondering now, like, well, if they got rid of the All Star game, would that be more of an incentive for like the big stars to do the dunk contest instead if there wasn't the All Star game? I don't know. These are just the
Yeah.
ramblings of a crazy old man who misses the days when the All Star games were more fun than they are now. And I'm with like that's the weird thing. Like I'm with Messi. If I was Lionel Messi, I'd be like, why am I going to
Yeah.
Austin to play some randos from the Mexican league? Like, why am I doing this? I don't. What do I get out of this? Like I could get paid $50 million to do nothing if I don't go. Like I don't get anything out of this. Like I side with Messi and not wanting to play. Like my whole point on the whole thing was just like the rules are what they are in MLS, and if they want to change them in the off season and want to adjust things in the off season, that's fine. But if they're in mid season going to go, well, Messi. That's where I'm kind of like, yeah, this
Yeah.
is annoying. And like somebody like the funniest one I had was like somebody commented on my like post about it and was like, oh, Nashville fans are scared of Messi. I'm like, they play Cincinnati. He wouldn't be suspended for the Nashville game. Wait, like I don't understand why
Yeah.
what this has to do with us. This is more of like a broad, just like I'm speaking on behalf, I think, of all MLS fans. Is like it's a little annoying the special treatment that it seems like Messi gets a little bit sometimes. But I could probably do like 2 more hours on that and probably just go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll end it off with this. it's super easy to be a Miami fan, and Miami hasn't had a Gary Smith moment in the past few years. So uh, I added some things to our docket. So I'm sorry for surprising you with this, Matt. But
Um,
I saw LASC is in talks with Son. I don't know his full name, but the winger from Tottenham. So we may see another kind of big name coming to MLS. I think that was from Fabrizio, which he's normally pretty accurate in the stuff he posts. So that would be cool to see. I think he's on the older side of things, but awesome right winger. Have you seen any of this news?
yeah, I saw some of the rumors of it, and it kind of made a lot of sense to me because it seems like Tottenham's got a new coach. They've kind of got a bit of a youth movement going. They brought in a ton of new players this offseason. He's one of those guys he's in that kind of weird spot where like he's not like an over the hill dude. Like I think I got to say he's only 30, maybe 31. So it's not like he's like fully washed dude coming to MLS. He'd still have something in the tank. He'd still be able to do
Yeah,
something. So I think it would make a lot of sense for him to come here if they could pull it off. But it does seem like he maybe would be on the outside looking in of the new project they're doing at Spurs with the young players coming in and the new coach. So would make a lot of sense. Would work out pretty well for them. I haven't followed them too closely this season, but I mean, he's the type of player who much like obviously not the caliber of Messi, but you see what a player like that who still has something to tank can come in and still give something at the MLS level. So I think he'd be good for them. I think he'd be a good fit in the league.
he's
You know,
33.
so Oh, 33. Wow, he's way older than I thought he was. Like I would
Yeah,
not have guessed 33. So, but I mean, like he had a, there's a guy who I follow on Twitter. You maybe have people like this who like you follow and they follow you and you kind of like you're not really sure where that came from, like who followed who first or why the following connections. There's a guy who I assume he must also be a Nashville SC fan, but he posts all the time about Tottenham. Like there's no National AC post in his stuff anymore. It's like all about Tottenham all the time. And he was like pretty sour on Son through the last part of the last season, where he was like, yeah, it's just he doesn't have it anymore. He's got to move on. But like I don't know. I've always thought Son was a pretty good player, but
yeah.
maybe I'm just like I also didn't realize he was 33. Maybe he's a little bit further along than I thought he was. But I
Yeah.
mean, um, I don't know. I mean, I think it would be a good move because I feel like he'd probably be a player who could give a year or two to MLS and be pretty solid. But who knows?
Yeah.
I also thought he was 2 years younger than he was, so my judgment might be off on this one.
Yeah, he's helped me a little bit on FIFA career and stuff like that. So that's about where my knowledge of him comes from, because you guys know that I don't really watch
Mm-hmm.
Premier League, but I did know that he was kind of a bit older. But I still think he's good. I mean, his World Cup stats: 13 matches, 10 goals. I don't. So that was from 2023 to 2025. So take that as you will. That's just stats I have up right here. But yeah, it just MLS retirement league. That's kind of one of the things that I think of. I still think he's going to be a great player. If he goes to LAFC, I don't think we see them that much, so I won't complain about it that often. But stepping outside of MLS a little bit, I sent you a post the other day, Matt. I didn't really, I don't think I had the full context of your reply to me, but Will Levis just went under season-ending surgery on, I believe, his shoulder or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you replied like, "What convenient timing," or something along those lines. So I was just wondering if you could clarify, give your thoughts on it.
Well, it was kind of like a double whammy of like interesting timing because obviously I had just declared Will Levis the best player in all of the best quarterback in the NFL in our last podcast, so it was like shortly after that. But it was also he went through the full off season situation, full training, all the mini camps, no issues seem to be arising in like day or two before the actual start of actual real training camp is when like if you read the statements from the team, if you hear what the coaches have said, I mean they have been very clear in making it clear he made the decision to
Hmm.
get the surgery and that would end his season. That it was, you know, not necessarily a team decision. And it's one of those weird things where it's kind of like it's definitely like that kind of makes it a little bit annoying. Where you're like, oh,
Hmm.
he kind of pulled the rug or whatever. But at the same time, it's kind of like I can kind of understand from his perspective where it's kind of like the writing's on the wall. He was not long for this season,
Yeah.
and they said, you know, at the end of last season, the coaches and like our general manager said the shoulder injury was kind of something that like started late last season. The initial like decision with the doctors and everything was to just rest and rehab in the off season, and that it didn't seem like it was necessary to get surgery or whatever. Um, I'm sure Will Levis was sitting there thinking, especially once we officially drafted Cam Ward, like, there's probably a trade, there's probably something coming up, you know, there's
Yeah.
probably I'm probably not going to be on this roster, you know, next year one way or the other. So maybe he kind of slow played any kind of decision to do anything with the shoulder himself because you know he's thinking I don't want to get shoulder surgery and risk you know messing up me getting traded to another team or something like that. But as we get to the point where training camp's starting and nothing's happened, kind of writings on the wall, you're going to be backup quarterback at
Yeah.
best. Trades not happening. Maybe you get released and you're just out there on the market. You know, see at that point in time where it made sense to him to be like, let me get this fixed 100%. Um, and that way, when I come back, you know, I've got that to sell to teams to say like, hey,
Yeah.
shoulder was what was screwing me up. That's why I was a terrible quarterback. Was my shoulder was all jacked up and now it's fixed. Like I remember Winston a couple years ago. That was the big thing. He got LASIK surgery and everybody's like, oh. Jameis Winston got LASIK surgery. He's fixed now. He's going to be the superstar we always thought he was. And then was pretty much still just Jameis Winston. But like, but I mean, I don't know if like the Titans have him under contract beyond the season. But I was also kind of like, that could benefit the Titans. Maybe the Titans are the one who go out there and sell like, hey, his shoulder's fixed now. Give us a third
Yeah.
round pick for him or something like that. But it was one of those things where it's like, you know, if he was going to play for the Titans this season, it was probably a bad thing because it was either going to be Cam Ward was hurt or Cam Ward sucked. So like
Yeah.
there wasn't a situation where we really wanted to see Will Levis on the field. So kind of annoying the way it went down. And I think that's why the Titans made it very clear he made the decision because they wanted to
Yeah.
like stick the knife in a little bit, like because they're probably a little bit frustrated with him too. But I don't. I kind of can understand and see where it's coming from because what's the benefit of him to like be a backup quarterback for a team that's probably wants to get rid of him anyway if he's not at 100%. So it was weird timing, weird way it all played out, but it's probably for the best one way or the other.
Yeah, and as someone who's tried to loosely follow, haven't been the best with the Titans this offseason. But I mean, for me, seeing that choice, I mean, it just kind of hit the nail in the coffin for me that Cam Ward is going to be our guy this season. Uh, and when I say our guy, that doesn't mean he's going to go out there and play phenomenally. He's just going to be our choice.
Mm-hmm.
Which in my eyes beforehand, like it was kind of already said that, but it is still we don't know what Cam Ward's going to do on the professional level. But I mean, now we really don't have a choice but to try to get the most out of him. Who's our so who would be our backup now?
So it looks like the most likely candidate is this guy named Brandon Allen. We signed like two or three kind of journeyman guys that have kind of bounced around the
Mm-hmm.
league, kind of been like guys you have to be like a complete sicko to even like know who they are, but they've popped up here and there in their careers. But it's not like we've signed anybody that's like ever really been a consistent starter or like stuck anywhere for more than like a year or two. So that was kind of probably also an indication that we were pretty, heavily, locked in that Cam Ward was, not going to be like a sit for a year type quarterback, that he was going to be better or worse thrown the fire right out of the gates because we didn't bring anybody in that was kind of maybe like a veteran bridge starter to get us through a year or whatever. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty much guys you've never heard of, guys you hope you don't have to see on the field pretty much because
Yeah.
they if they're out there, that means something bad has happened. But there's always the chance they could bring somebody else in. A lot of things happen during camp. players get cut, players get traded. So they could bring in somebody more experienced to kind of be a little bit more of a reliable backup. But right now, it's all hands on deck for Cam Ward. And if any of the other guys get in there, we're in pretty big trouble.
All right, good to know. I'm excited for the season to start because I feel like I've been the most locked in on it. Kind of stepping away from sports for a minute. I know I didn't get to watch the video yet, but during one of your Burger Week reviews, you also threw a Superman movie review in there, and I just recently saw the movie. Uh, I'll throw a timestamp up on the screen, and I'll cut in and edit when we're done talking about it if you want to avoid spoilers. Editing Wormy here. Skip to the 58th minute if you don't want to hear any Superman spoilers. But I mean, it was a 5-star movie for me. That was the perfect superhero movie in my eyes. James Gunn killed it. I bought into this Superman, David Cornsweet, and I keep watching the interviews and press that he does, and he's another one of those Henry Cavill types where he's a nerd. He's a nerd in different ways than Henry Cavill was, but you just love to see a guy like that, get one of these huge roles. Uh, James Gunn, DC's in good hands. I was kind of worried about the he incorporates a lot of humor into his movies, which is good, but sometimes it can be a little too much. And I've seen some people complain, but I thought in this movie it was great. I thought there was a good balance. James Gunn has another thing James Gunn does is he makes you love those like non-human characters, like in Guardians of the Galaxy, Groot. You I am Groot the whole time, and you just fall in love with that character. And there's some other examples of that I can't think of off the top of my head. But Crypto, I that was one of my favorite parts of the movie. And then the robots in Superman's lair, I forget their names, but those were also, sneaky, like really shining moments of the film for me. Uh, you already gave your review in a vlog, but if you wanted to say your thoughts here, that'd be cool too.
Yeah, no, I echo everything you said right there. I mean, it was. I thought, it sounds like one of those weird things because I think it's as much that there's not been a good Superman movie since the original in 1978, but I think there's just like reverence for Christopher Reeve just because of what he went through later in his life and stuff like that. But I honestly thought like David Cornsweet might have been a better Superman than even Christopher Reeve. Like I just thought he struck the perfect balance of like, like there's the scene that stuck with me, like that, like felt like the most Superman, like because I've read the comic books my whole life, like
Mm-hmm.
1992, Death of Superman, like that was my first comic book, so I've been with Superman like since then. And the scene where I think it's like Lois and him, he flies into the apartment, the whole thing's going on in the background,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, I was looking for my dog, and she goes, "You got a dog?" He goes, "He's not even a very good dog." And he says, "But he's out there somewhere and he's alone and he's scared." I'm like,
Yeah.
that is like Superman to the core. Is that like it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter, you know, he would, is whatever's going on with him and Lex Luthor. Like if Lex Luthor was in trouble, he would save Lex Luthor. He's just gonna save
Yeah.
everybody. He cares about everybody more than anything else. Like just the
The squirrel scene
like
did that
level
for
of
me.
care. Yeah, like the level of care he just like, yeah, the squirrel scene, there were so many scenes where they were like, and I almost like wonder if it was like kind of almost a reaction to the Henry Cavill movies where like the huge criticism was that like they
Let
just
everyone die.
destroyed the entire city, millions of people probably died, and there was never a time where he seemed to like be like, oh shit, we should probably like not be doing this right here. Like he even like there's even like scenes where he's like, let's take this battle to the sky. Like he's like trying to pull the fight away from the citizens and stuff like that. Where it's just like showing that like literally like the scene where like spoilers. I think the scene's been published online, so people have probably seen it even. But like the best scene I've seen in like a super movie in years is like Lois's interview with him, where like they're
Hmm.
going back and forth, and he gets to like legitimately like kind of lay out exactly what Superman is. And like when he loses, when he like gets fed up, he's like, people were gonna die. I don't care about political stuff. I don't care about,
Hmm.
I'm not on a side. People were gonna die, and I had to save them. Like that's as much as you could sum up Superman in just that one moment is like, I don't care about the political stuff. I don't care about like the battle lines or who's allied with what country or whatever. It's like people were gonna die, and I had to help people. Like that's Superman at his core. And I thought this movie did a really good job of like highlighting that part of Superman. So I was like really happy to see that. It's one of those movies where like as much as I liked it when I first saw it, the more I've thought about it and coming out of it, it just sticks with me, and I like
Yeah.
keep liking it more and more. And I've wanted to see it again, but I had a pretty busy week, going out of town and doing all this stuff. So like I'm gonna try. I think Sunday
Hmm.
I'm gonna try to do a double feature and go see Superman again and see the new Fantastic Four movie back to back and see if I can pull that off because I mean I just it's been one of those movies that stuck with me and I just like
Yeah.
thinking about it, thinking about scenes from it, just like stuff's just resonated with me. And like I know there's a lot of people who like had like weird criticisms of like, oh well, I didn't like Lex Luthor was too young, or he was like I didn't get why he was like. I thought this huge spoiler right here, so like spoiler alerts if anybody hasn't seen the movie. One of my favorite things about the movie is that the entire plot of the movie that Lex Luthor is trying to pull off is everybody's like, oh, we figured it out. Lex Luthor's like doing this whole subterfuge to like they're gonna name a country after him once he helps this other country, but it's like, no, this whole thing was just a trick so that the government would let me kill Superman because that's all I want to do is kill Superman. I was like, as much as like that was like the key to Superman in this movie is he just wants to say everybody, Lex Luthor being just like, I don't care about anything. I don't care about the money. I don't care about the power. I just want to kill Superman. I was like, nailed it, nailed it. But
Yeah.
they nailed Superman. They nailed Lex Luthor. Lois Lane was awesome, just being like the ultimate journalist, like getting to the bottom of stuff. I was like, they hit it out of the park. I don't like the guy who plays Jimmy Olsen. He's just one of those actors where like
I love that
every
guy.
time I see him and stuff, like he's just like, there's nothing wrong with him. Like he's a good actor. He does like there's some stuff where I've been entertained with him, but he's like, I'm sure everybody has these people. Like where it's like an
Yeah.
actor shows up and stuff, and you're just like, I just don't like that guy. So it was nothing. It's weird because it's not a personal thing. It's just for whatever reason, like I love Righteous Gemstones. He's in Righteous
Yeah.
Gemstones, but like
Yeah.
even in Righteous Gemstones, when he shows up there, I'm like, this guy. It's just like he's not bad. It's like he's like there's nothing wrong with him. He's just for whatever reason, like I see him, and I'm just like, this guy does just something about him. I'm like, he's not my guy. He's not my guy. But I did think it was kind of an entertaining thing that like he's like this weird like sex god that like all the women are
Yeah.
just like obsessed with and like why it's just like a funny little thing because I
Yeah.
do think that is something that's been like a comic book thing at some point in times where like women throw themselves at Jimmy Olsen inexplicably. So I was kind of like it did have the feel of like I've seen a lot of people say this and I think I said it in my review like it's the most like comic book
Hmm.
movie that's probably ever been out where it literally felt like a comic book because like they even had like the scene where the whatever alien thing is just destroying Metropolis in the background. It's like,
Hmm.
in Marvel movies or like the Batman movies, you'd have to like explain like, oh, well, this is why the citizens are like, what's like, well, this is Metropolis now. They know there's alien attacks all the time, and there's just that like the evacuation siren goes off when the city's getting cut in half, and they're just like, here we go, it's another Tuesday, we got to get out of the city. Where it's like that is kind of the way things are in comic books, where like
Hmm.
normal humans probably in the DC universe are just like, oh my god, Superman's up there fighting an alien again. Go down to the bunker, Helen. We gotta batten down the hatches type thing. So like just and that was probably another testament to James Gunn's decision making of just like not doing the origin story again, just like dropping us into an existing world where Superman's been around for whatever I think it was 3 years was like the thing. Superman debuted 3 years ago, so skipping
Hmm.
over all that time and just saying this is a world where everybody knows what superheroes are. They know what they're up to. It's not going to cause a mass panic in the streets of an aliens flying over the metropolis, like shooting laser beams at the Green Lantern. Everybody just
Yeah.
knows what's going on. That made it like that much easier to kind of get into the story and just kind of getting going. So probably rambled on more than I wanted to about Superman since I already did like an entire video talking about it. But you got me going, and like that's a movie that's like hit with me and stuck
Yeah.
with me. So I'll cut myself off before I go for another like 20 minutes.
Yeah, and just again, that's James Gunn taking over the DC. EU, DCU, whatever it's called now. I was like, okay, we'll see what happens. But I mean, I've been watching a lot of press after I watched the movie, and he's just one of those guys that you can tell truly like respects what the comic books, the and the source material that he's pulling a lot of this stuff from, and I think that every other project is going to be good from him. Which I mean, he's already had a lot of success, but it's in good hands. It was a good movie. The squirrel scene that I mentioned during your talking was one of those just like that's so Superman. He's taking time out to save a squirrel, and then you have I'm getting a bunch of memes on my Instagram of Henry Cavill's Superman just letting like hundreds of people die, and it's there's like he's letting these people die to Aura Farm. I don't know if you're familiar with that terminology,
Mm,
but
no.
the funny thing I saw
I do.
go ahead.
I was gonna say I do like the one thing you mentioned James Gunn, like the way he's talked about stuff. It's like I like that he's pretty much said, they don't have a yearly quota of like we got to make this many movies a
Hmm.
year. He's like said over and over again, we're not going to make any movies, TV shows unless we're 100% confident it's going to
Hmm.
be, that we like it, that we think it's good. And I think that's one of the things that's kind of like hurt the last like, whatever 5 6 years of the Marvel movies where felt like when Disney Plus launched and they started the TV shows and it got too big, they're like, well, we got to have 5 TV shows a year, we got to have 4 movies a year, and suddenly it was like stretched too thin, and stuff was probably getting put out that like
Shouldn't have
wasn't really ready to like get put out. Like I just a couple weeks ago, I watched the new Captain America movie on Disney Plus, and I was like, this felt like they had like 6 different ideas for a movie and couldn't settle on which one to do, so they just jammed them all together and then maybe came up with like a seventh idea at the last
been.
minute and tried to put that into. So it's like even like I think like the next 2 movies, they've got a Supergirl movie coming out, which she spoiler alert, we got to see her a little bit at the tail end of Superman, and in that like one little scene, it was enough to make me like, oh, this could be a cool version of this character. I can't wait to see what
Yeah,
they do with that. And then they're going to do, I think, a Clayface movie is like the third movie that they've
yeah,
like greenlit, which is like Clayface, like the most like D- Batman villain that like who would, and he's going to be the third movie they put out, but they, you know if they believe in it, I trust James Gunn, like you said,
hmm,
like he's only doing the stuff that they really believe in, they really think is good. Even going back before Superman, Peacemaker, his
yeah,
Suicide Squad movie, the Creature Commandos cartoon series. Not everything's been like 100 out of 100, but I mean everything's been good. So so far so
yeah.
good. So I mean if they got a good script for a Clayface movie that they think's going to be something worth showing, which to me it's like, how are we getting a Clayface movie before we get a Batman movie? But still, like I'm trusting him. I'm putting my trust in him.
Yeah.
He's earned my trust. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. We'll go with it.
I mean, I'm excited to see the D tier, C tier stuff just because we really haven't gotten it. There was a huge interview that came out with Kevin Feige, who's like the head guy at Marvel too, where
Mm,
you'd mentioned how the new Captain America was all over the place. I hadn't saw it. I honestly forgot it was a thing until you just brought it up. But they never like start a movie with a full script. They like make the
hmm.
script up as they go. And James Gunn was like talking in his GQ interview that I watched today. He's like, we always have it set in stone. Not much gets changed. We know exactly what we're shooting. And I think that's the difference
Yeah.
between the two, and it shows. And James Gunn also he said a pretty cool point where he's like, I don't think superhero fatigue is real. He's like, I think mediocre movie fatigue is what's
Hmm.
happening. And I think that's been Marvel's biggest downfall is just pushing out so much mediocre crap that doesn't really have true destinations as they're just making it up. And
Yeah.
that worked super well with the first Iron Man, but I think it kind of fell off as you go because you don't have John Favreau working on everything.
Yeah, and I think like the Marvel thing is like they almost like are their own worst enemy. Where like at a certain point in time, like you know, about halfway through the first wave of movies, it was like clear they were building to stuff. It's like every movie felt
Hmm.
like whether they were directly tied was like kind of a sequel to the next movie. So like you were like, I can't miss Ant-Man because Ant-Man's going to set up what's going to
Yeah,
happen in Doctor Strange. And like the more recent Marvel movies, like they felt more scattershot, like they weren't really building to anything, or they weren't like really connected to the other stuff. And that's probably a product of them just trying to do too much. And like Jeff Daniels, who played the villain in the first Iron Man movie, was like the first one, like way back then, 2008, was even saying like, we didn't have a script for this movie. We were literally just showing up every day and like just kind of winging it. And like sometimes Favreau would give us lines. Sometimes Downey would just say whatever he wanted to say, and we just kind of shoot it. He's like, I've never done a movie like this before, because he's like been in movies his whole life, so it was like crazy for him. And like you can probably get away with that a little bit more when you've like to your point, like you just said, with John Favreau, with Robert Downey Jr., with
hmm
like Josh Whedon going back to the first Avengers. When you've got like experienced, high quality actors, directors, and writers and everything involved, and you've only got to do one or two of those a year. You can wing it a little bit more and then tighten
yeah,
it up as you need to. But like last like 4 or 5 years where they've been putting out like 6 movies, 10 TV shows, it's like, and Kevin Feige, like he got a lot of credit for building all that, but like I gotta imagine it was crazy for him to be like, wait, who's in that? Uh, we're doing a Wolfman TV show. Who's in that? What like a Moon Knight? We're doing the Moon Knight. Like
yeah,
it had to just get out of control. Like at that point in time, and I think I read some of the stuff from the interview you said, and even I think he even kind of said we're tightening up the ship now going forward.
hmm
Like we got a little too expansive for our own good, and like they're going to start kind of tightening up, and you can kind of tell that they kind of realize that because like I think they're bringing back. Obviously, I think not a spoiler alert. They've announced it everywhere. Robert Downey Jr. is coming back to play Doctor Doom.
hmm
They're bringing back the guys who directed the two Endgame, Infinity War, and all the like Captain America movies. So they're like
Russo
bringing
brothers.
back, yeah, the Russo brothers, like the old crew that kind of like
hmm
kept the ship rolling through that little stretch there. So they're kind of like repackaging, getting things back together. Because they even said like the Blade movie, they're like, we really wanted to make this Blade movie, but like every time we got close to making it, we were just like, this isn't right. Like, why we're not going to make this? And like, they're kind of like, we're going to make a Blade movie. Marshall Ali is a great actor. We want him to play Blade, but we're not going to do it just to do it and stuff like
Yeah,
that. So it seems like they're kind of course correcting. And I got to think, it's kind of like there's a funny thing in like wrestling now where like there's a newer company called AEW. They're not as successful as WWF or anything
hmm
like that or WWE, but they've kind of pushed WWE to be a little bit better than they were for like the last 10 years where WWE was the only game in town. So it's almost like Superman being good is probably a
yeah,
good thing if you're like a fan of the Marvel movies because it's gonna be like make Marvel kind of be like, okay, we got a little competition now. We got to like spark it up now. We got to like try to be good. We got to try to like up our game. It's like back and forth. A little bit of competition's never a bad thing.
yeah. I'm interested to see what Fantastic Four will look like because that's one that I have high hopes for. But it's once again, my feelings for Marvel are not exactly the highest right now, so I hope they come out with something good. What one thing I did want to highlight that I thought was hilarious before we move on is that James Gunn said that he like came up with the whole Infinity Stone premise in 5 minutes whenever they were shooting Guardians, which was just hilarious to me. Um, but yeah, so you'll have to let me know what you think about Fantastic Four. Um, and then just a little bit more movies, TV talk before we move on because we rambled a bit.
Hmm.
Ted Lasso season 4, like first kind of look into it, just got announced. They were at a diner and it was Ted, Keely, Rebecca, and Higgins, and I think they were in Kansas. So we'll see. We kind of know. If you, I'll post another Ted Lasso spoiler to count ahead, but this is all stuff that's been announced. But we know that they're doing a women's team this season. So I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if you've watched Ted Lasso or not, Matt. But
Hmm.
I thought it was a perfect show, and I thought it had a perfect ending. So to kind of bring Ted back, they're gonna need a really good excuse for that in my head for me to really buy into it. But that's just something I saw through the Ted Lasso jersey on. I'm excited for it
That's a
regardless,
good one.
but I hope they do it right because the ending was perfect to me.
Yeah, yeah, I'm a big fan of the show. The third season was a little wonky. Like I do think they got the ending right. it did seem like it was one of those shows where it felt like maybe at the start of the third season they didn't know it was going to be the last season,
Yeah,
so it seemed like they were kind of setting up some more like long term stuff, and then all of a sudden they were just kind of like, oh wait, no, we're not going to do any more at this, so let's like start tying up thing with a bow, and they just kind of threw some stuff away. So the third season was a little uneven, but I did think the ending was really good, and it is one of those things where like, oh, when you did get the ending right, do you want to come back? But like, and it's honestly like, because I can remember when the commercials first came out, like for the Ted Lasso character that was just supposed to promote that the NBC was going to have the Premier League, and he was just supposed to be some dumb like, how did you make that into a TV show? And somehow they pulled it off and made it like a
yeah,
really great show for like 3 years. So it'll be interesting, like to see how they bring it back. If can they like bring back? Does it feel like one of those shows that like needs to come back? So yeah, I'll watch it for sure. But like I'm
yeah,
definitely kind of like, to your point, like I thought it ended pretty well. So I don't know like what are we gonna do coming back? And like I like it's one of those weird like things where I wonder like what like women think are gonna think about it. Like the whole premise was like he's this idiot who can't coach,
yeah,
and now the new like revival is like, well, he can coach a women's team. It's like that feels like that's kind of like somebody's gonna say it. I'm not saying it, but somebody's gonna say that. Well, that's misogynist. That this idiot who couldn't even coach men is somehow they're gonna go get him to coach women or something like that. Somebody's gonna say that. Not me. I'm not gonna be the one that says it, but I guarantee there's gonna be think pieces about it written about like what does it say about women's sports that this idiot from Kansas City who just likes barbecue and has a mustache is considered a good women's coach, but it's like, wait, didn't he almost win the Premier League? I mean, aren't we living in the world where he
yeah,
almost won the Premier League? Like he's like, somehow it'll happen. But like, I'm
yeah,
interested
yeah.
in like the, it's like the creator of the show is the same guy who created Scrubs, which is like one of my favorite shows of all time.
Hmm.
Pretty much everything he's ever done has been like hilarious and awesome. So I'm sure,
Yeah,
you know, it'll be good. It might not be. It'll be one of those things where like, will it be great that it comes back? Maybe not, but I'm sure it'll be entertaining. I'm sure they'll have some
yeah,
Ted will give some big emotional speech. They'll make your eye water a little bit. You'll be like, oh, here we go, Ted Lasso. And then he'll like wrap it up with some like colloquialism. So they'll do the Ted Lasso stuff. But
yeah,
it'll be one of those where I'm like, I'll be happy to have it back, but I'll still probably be like, did they need to come back type thing.
yeah. I think since they started with the men's team and he was successful, we shouldn't see that kind of backlash. But there's always someone on the internet. Um, I see a lot of
Well, there are
people
probably
get,
people that'll go the probably people that go the other way, like, oh, they're making this a women empowerment
yeah.
show now because so probably somehow it'll be like people on both sides will be mad about it somehow. I'm sure.
I've seen so many like comments on Ted Lasso 4 stuff where it's just like women's team, no thanks, I'm not watching. I'm like, come on, guys, let's relax. Um, but
I
if
mean, hey, I mean, I've spent the last 10 years appreciating people like Alex Morgan and stuff like that. So I mean, I'm not going to turn my nose up to seeing some women soccer players. I'm sure they'll
yeah,
cast some good people.
yeah, I'm a big advocate for women's sports. I'm also 6'4", and I hate period cramps for anyone listening. So I'm excited to see Ted Lasso season 4. Uh, but coming stepping into your world, Matt, we had some big news this morning. I woke up to a ESPN notification that Hulk Hogan had passed away. Um, I've been pretty, standing on the point that I don't know anything about WWE, WWF, or never watched it. So, as a fan, what does that mean for you? I know he kind of went off in the last few years, but
Yeah, it's a weird one because like I think there's just the impact he had on professional wrestling and pop culture together. I mean, there's probably nobody bigger in professional wrestling history that's kind of like The Rock. Rock is probably he because he's a way bigger star, especially on
hmm,
movie side of stuff than like Hogan. But on the wrestling side, Hogan was definitely a bigger star in the wrestling world than The Rock was, and
yeah,
Hogan was kind of the first one that kind of blew it up to that extent, to even like paved the way for somebody The Rock to come along. Um, but I came along, I came along to wrestling in like the late '90s, like '99, when Stone Cold Steve Austin was breaking through, and
hmm,
Hogan was like the old uncool guy, and Stone Cold was like badass cussing and drinking beers, and like on the other show, there's this old guy that's keeping all the young guys down. So I kind of like didn't like Hogan when I started getting into wrestling, but then as I got older, it was like learned the history and was like, oh, I got respect for him. And then like you kind of mentioned, like the last 10 years or so probably haven't been the best representation of a what you'd want out of a person. But I'm one of those people who's like short of like people that commit genocide or something like that. I have a hard time like speaking ill of the dead.
Yeah.
So I probably would say like I think I told this. I think my quote to my wife today was, you know, Hulk Hogan, the character, iconic legend.
Hmm.
There's no questioning what he did for professional wrestling and to a certain extent pop culture as a whole. But Terry Bollea, the person, maybe not the best. Maybe not the best. So let's just
Yeah.
condolences to his family because whatever he got himself into the last few years. There's people who are
Hmm.
hurting right now because of that loss and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a I mean, he's a significant person. That's the one thing. A significant person in the
Yeah.
pop culture landscape over the last 30 years. So it's a weird week. Him, freaking Ozzy
Ozzy.
Osbourne,
Yeah.
and Malcolm Jamal Warner. That's a little bit of an older one, probably for you, but he was
Yeah.
the main son on like the biggest sitcom of like the 80s and 90s, the Cosby Show. So
Mm.
they always say those celebrity deaths comes in threes. So it was a weird week with like those three
Yeah.
deaths going down like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, uh,
The biggest one I knew was Ozzy Osbourne. Who on the opposite side of Hulk Hogan was pretty much a saint his whole life. So, that's a tremendous loss to the world and rock music. But I've been listening to Black Sabbath this week, and in memoriam for him. Back to Nashville. Let's see.
yeah.
Or go ahead.
Well, I will say one thing about Ozzy. I thought it was kind of interesting. Like he had his farewell concert like 2 weeks ago,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and obviously he was in bad health. I think he was in a wheelchair for that concert. But I was kind of wondering, like I'm sure there was stuff going on behind the scenes with his health and stuff like beyond that. But it's like uh, the thing that happens sometimes when like you lose the love of your life. Like you see like old people, like a grandpa, his wife dies and he dies like a week later. Like it's like
Hmm.
did Ozzy just like play his last show and just like the realization of like I'm never gonna play music again. I played my last concert. I did my last show. Was it just like I've completed the journey? It was very
Yeah.
very weird timing for him to have like had this great final appearance that went over so well and seemed like to be this big deal and just be like, all right, I can go now, I guess, type thing. But yeah, that was an interesting one. But condolences to all those people's families and loved ones and all their fans and everything. Because love them or hate them, there's definitely people hurting when people die one way or the other.
Yeah. Could have said that better. San Diego. We're going there. Nashville SC. Uh, Tomorrow actually. So for everyone watching, it is Friday night. I didn't even know it was Saturday until Matt told me earlier. So make sure. I think it's also at like uh, if you're in my time zone, which is Eastern Standard Time. I don't think it's till like 10 or 10:30 that it starts. So if you're trying to catch a game, make sure to be aware of the time and stuff. But Annabelle Godoy is on the squad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yep.
think
Yep.
I know at the beginning of the season he was doing pretty good. I don't know. I haven't kept up as much, but San Diego is like a new team, right?
Yeah, this is their first season. They're an expansion team this season.
Yeah. So it's going to be fun to see that matchup. Like we've been saying the past two episodes, there's a lot of logistics that go into this. We're playing in on the West Coast. Our guys are probably going to have jet lag, All Star game, all these games. So it'll be interesting to see our performance, our lineup, going into it. What's your thoughts going into the match, Matt?
Yeah, it'll be interesting because there's no history there at all to like build off of because it's the first time we'll have ever played them.
Mm-hmm.
Their first season in the league. They're top of the Western Conference right now, which is coming like a weird trend the last couple of years where expansion teams, especially in the West, are coming in and having success right out of the gate. Like a couple of years ago, St. Louis was the top team in the West their first
Mm,
season. They got some names that certain people would recognize. Chucky Lozano, one of the better players of from the Mexican national team for the last decade or so. He's come back from Europe to play for them. Luca Del Torre, a guy who's kind of been in and around the U.S. national team. He played in Europe for a while, and now he's back to play for them. And they got a guy who's like right up there with Mukhtar, Surridge, and Messi, kind of in the MVP conversation. I think his name is, I'm probably going to mispronounce it or use one wrong name at least, but it's Andres Dwyer. He's got like double digit assists, like almost double digit goals. Been one of like kind of the driving forces for them to like kind of spark their season so far. So they're a good team. They've got good results so far, but like
mm,
it's hard to like gauge where they are in relation to us because like we don't have a lot of common opponents.
yeah.
Never played them before, so there's no like kind of previous history to build off of. Um, and obviously, it's weird. Like we talked about it a little bit earlier with the All Star stuff. Where Hani Mukhtar, Sam Surridge, Andy Nahar, all three didn't play the full match, but played in somewhat of a match Wednesday. Had to probably travel Thursday today while we're recording, and the game's tomorrow. So like, I would be shocked if any of them start just because of the quick travel turnaround. But like I've been saying for
Hmm.
like 3 weeks we're gonna rest players, and we haven't. So like
Yeah.
maybe they all just show up and like play since they all only played about like 20-30 minutes in the match on Wednesday. And I know I saw pictures like from the Nashville SC accounts today. The team's already out there, so they went
Yeah.
out a little bit early to like start acclimating, not like fly out day of the match, or at least so have a day advance to get adjusted to the weather, the travel, and everything like. So like hopefully some of that's helpful, but it's a hard one to predict. This is definitely one where like I really have no feel for the match because I'm kind of like, are we gonna like rest our three best players, or are they gonna like
Hmm.
shock us and they're all gonna be in there? Are we gonna have some fatigue? Are they like are San Diego for real? Or are they just like a new team bounce? This game could go anyway, and I would not be surprised. I really don't even have a prediction for this game other than to say like I'm excited to see it. I know
Yeah.
there's like a ton of I don't know if ton might be an exaggeration, but I know I've seen like in the various discords and social media posts, it seems like there's like going to be a good amount of Nashville SC fans that pick this game for an away day, which rightfully so. Like I mean, San Diego is supposed to be like one of the nicest like
Hmm.
places in the world. So if you got the ability to go out there for a match, by all means do it. So it seems like we'll have a good away presence for that, which you don't always see in MLS matches on the West Coast East Coast swing type thing. So it'll be entertaining to see. It'll be fun to watch. Looking forward to it, and just yeah, anything can happen. I have no prediction, no feel for this at all, but I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah. I was just looking up about the stadium that they play in. It's called Snapdragon Stadium, and it is
Hmm.
um, the San Diego State University College. So we're playing in a college stadium, which is interesting. Which I mean, I know earlier MLS days we probably did that a ton, but I'm excited to see Godoy. Hopefully, he's out on the pitch during this match. He was a Nashville SC player, so I hope he does well, but not too well. Um, kind of like Matt said, y'all know. Listening to this podcast, I am very, very tunnel visioned on my team, so I'm not always the most familiar with what everyone is doing out in the Western Conference, but they seem to be on a run at least this season. So it'll probably be a tougher game if I had to say one way or another. I'm gonna go with a 1-1 draw, and that's really just me throwing a number. I think it's gonna be a draw either way, just because it's got to come one way or another, and it's a top league team. So that's probably what my prediction would be.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't think it's going to be from what I've heard about the way they play, it seems like they kind of go for it. We kind of go for it. So it'll be interesting to see, because we have kind of set back in a couple games like that. I think what was it, a couple weeks back against was it Philadelphia? There was one game a couple weeks back where we settled back a little bit more. So we've kind of
Mm.
added that into the mix. Whereas earlier in the season, BJ Callahan was just kind of gung ho, go for everything all the time. Didn't really seem to have like the ability to kind of put on the brakes and sit back a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how we approach the game because like I know from stuff I've read and stuff I've seen about them is that they're kind of a pretty open, pretty push forward attack team. So is it going to be just both teams going for it and we get like a 5-3 game? Or are we going to sit a little deeper and maybe it's like you said, a 1-1 game where we kind of both take our shots? But
Mhm.
once again, like I said, I watched the opening game of the season where they played LAFC and beat them,
Yeah.
I think 1 or 2-0. That was probably the last time I saw them play.
Hmm.
And just only seen scores, seen like quick highlights, kind of heard stuff about them on various podcasts and stuff like that. So having no point of reference of anything we've done with them before, I almost feel like I don't want to ever pick against Nashville SC, but like once again with the, you know, we have this trend where
Hmm.
if we play a team the first time, we get either a draw or a loss. We play a team the second time, we win. So we've never played them before in our entire history. So I don't know. BJ seems to need like 2 shots at a team to like figure him out. And like the second time around, he's like, I got you. I know what to do here. I know how to
Yeah.
get you this time. So I don't know. Maybe it won't be as. I don't know if I don't think we'll go out there and just smash them or anything like that. So,
Yeah.
but it'll be fun to watch just to see, just to because it'll be cool to see like a team that we've never seen before. Because like bored of watching us play like DC United. I feel like we played DC United like 10 times this season. Like
Yeah.
I'm ready to see some new players and like a different team. So that'll be fun.
Our other Western Conference matchup this season has just been Seattle, right? That's been our only one, and we got rolled.
It's That's the only one I can think of off the top of my head, which is
Yeah.
crazy because it feels like there's usually a little bit more. Oh, we played no, we played Portland. We played Portland like the second or third
Mm,
game of the season, and we beat them really.
yeah.
They ended up like kind of turning around and getting some stuff going. Like they were struggling to start the season. We beat them like second or third game of the season. Yeah, but I think Portland and Seattle. I think that might be the only 2 Western Conference teams we've played so far. I don't know where Montreal is. Montreal's east, probably. I don't know
Uh,
anything about Canada. I don't know what part of Canada anybody's in.
yeah. I don't know about that. But just something off the top of my head. I think it's Portland that like saws the wood in the supporter section, which is
Yeah. Yep.
that's badass. I can't lie. That's pretty sick.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for joining us this week for the 615 Locker Room Podcast. Make sure to go follow and check out Uncle Matt on all social media, YouTube, everything. Um, I have a YouTube channel, Wormy, and then also go check out my TikTok, Dylan Tries to Read, trying to get that off the ground. Um, get out to the movies while you
Yeah,
can.
been looking like you've been getting some good engagement on that. I've like seen some of your posts, like getting a lot of likes. Look like that's some numbies.
Yeah, I'm trying, man. I did the like TikTok promotion center on one of the videos. I paid like $8. It got me like 3,000 views, 200 likes, but it wasn't. It was one of those things where it wasn't like real engagement. I felt like it was kind of
Mm.
people looked at it, liked it, and moved past, and nothing really came from it. So I'm
Mm.
not gonna do that again. But other than that, I mean, building a small little group about like 2 or 3 people. I go on TikTok live and do like they're called reading sprints, and I get a good little amount of people come through there. But it's been fun, super cool. Yeah, but yeah, thanks for the support on that. I saw one of your TikToks of you and your wife doing the like food review things, and she's like getting mad that your head was like she's like your big ass head.
Yeah, my head's not proportioned right for those like ones where you do like the nod one way or the other. Because I'm just like I'm also like probably like turning my head to like try to look closer. And I'm like, I voted the wrong way like 20 times. And she's like, oh, we don't want to vote for that one. And I was like,
It had lasagna
sorry,
four
my bad.
times.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. Like the whole one side of the bracket and it being lasagna. I was like, I don't even know how that happened with like my head. Like that was even. I don't think that was me nodding my head. I think that was just like a glitch in the matrix or something like that. Where it's like, how was the final four lasagna? Like how did lasagna get all the spots? I didn't even know what was happening.
um, I'll,
Yeah, but also like the other TikTok that I had recently that I really loved was like I clipped from like my most recent game day vlog was her great the best. We should just had her come on the episode tonight and just review the
yeah.
Toronto game because her assessment of the Toronto was like, red team fell down too much. Referee bought their bullshit. We fell down. He didn't buy our bullshit. I was like, you got it right. You nailed it. Like she had the best post match review I've ever. I shouldn't have even talked about the game myself.
Yeah, the on Star Wars Night, I think I commented it was just so fitting that the red team was the bad guys. Um,
Mm.
and all we said this was going to be a short episode, but I do have. It turns out it's one of our longest. But I have another question for you, Matt. Before we leave,
It
um,
happens.
I noticed on and we can cut this part out if you want. I noticed on the YouTube that the daily videos have stopped. Is there any plan on bringing those back or?
No, because like that was one of those things where it's like I think I mentioned it in like one video at one point in time. It's like one of those things where like I'm like a weird like spurt person on stuff where it's like
Yeah,
I'll go with something for like a while, but then once I like I lose interest pretty quickly. And like it's one of those things where like I thought it'd be cool to do the whole year, and then like I should like a stretch where it was like 8 straight days where it's just like garbage stuff that wasn't even fun. Like it was like
yeah,
a national like point your finger day or stupid stuff. And there's like, and then there was other day, there was literally days where like I was like going to bed and I was like, oh my god, I didn't do one of those stupid videos today, and I'd like drag myself back in here. Like you
yeah,
can probably see it if you go watch like the last like 4 or 5 I did, where I like dragged myself back in here, plopped down. Like I probably was already in my pajamas and just like put like a random shirt and hat on. It was just like it's National Cat Call Your Cat a Friend Day, and I was like, "Hey, cat, you're my friend." Just like just the last like 4 or 5, I was just
yeah,
like trying to like grasp at straws for him, and I was like, if there was like I know like we just had it was like I think Sunday was like National Ice Cream Day because I got like some ice cream for like $5 off the grocery store. I was like, oh, it's National Ice Cream Day. Maybe I should like put this in a video. And then I was like, I'm just gonna eat this ice cream. I don't care about making a video about this at some more time. And like
yeah,
some of those things where it wasn't like the videos were doing like anything that great anyway. So I was kind of like, what's the point? Like there's like the only reason I would have kept doing it was just like for my own like weird satisfaction of being like, I did it.
yeah,
I did 365 days, but I'd already missed. I'd already like I also had to like randomly miss days and just ignored pretended like I didn't. So I was kind of like I already missed days, and I'm just like whatever. I gave up on it. So probably won't be coming back. But if there's like a fun day
yeah.
worth doing a video about, I'll do it. But I'm not gonna like. I'm definitely not gonna start back up like with like, well, here we are. We quit back in May, but now I'm gonna jump back up and finish the rest of the year. So if there's like a cool day worth doing something for, I'll do it. But I'm not gonna like revive the series.
Yeah.
'Cause it just got to the point where I was like, it shouldn't be that like much of a drag on you to like do like a 2 second video. But I was like, oh god,
Yeah.
I gotta go do National Bubblegum Day. Fuck, Jesus. That's when I kind of was like giving up, and I was like, I should not be like that, like feeling like it's this big of a burden to do like national whatever stupid thing day because I don't even have to go anywhere. I was just sitting here doing it, and I was like, ugh,
Yeah.
I'm just not gonna do it anymore. So yeah, that one kind of faded out and
Uh,
faded into Bolivia.
that's fair. There was some good days like you had like National Mexican Food Day or something like that, which was amazing, and then you'd have like you said National Point at Your Cat Day or something just
Yeah,
ridiculous.
that's what I thought. I thought because like I had this like website that had like because there was usually like 5 or 6 that you could pick from. Like there was,
Mhm.
and there would be stuff like where like you look on Twitter or whatever, and it would like that would be kind of like the main one. But they had like other ones, so I was like, oh, there's always gonna be at least some fun I could play. And then we just hit like a stretch of days where it was like National Geography Awareness Day. I was like, why? No, I don't want to do this. And I was like, just like, and then we'd like go to a concert or we'd go out to like play trivia or something like that. And by the time I got home, I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to try to
Yeah.
figure out how to do national like call your third best friend day on the phone. I was like, I can't do this stuff. I was like, I'm done with this now. It's like we'll just let this one go.
Well,
And I'd already unintentionally missed like 2 days, 2 or 3 days already. So I was like, I already missed three. I didn't get 365 one way or the other, so I might as well just give up now.
if it makes you feel better, I was there every day waiting for the video. So rest in peace to that
I
series.
appreciate it. I
um,
appreciate it.
thank you guys for listening to this week's of the 615 Locker Room Podcast. I feel like a lot of our episode today was outside of 615, but that's what it is. That's the freedom of a podcast. Check Uncle Matt out on YouTube and everything else. Check me out on YouTube and TikTok. And we will see you next week to go over Nashville SC versus San Diego.